So, again, hi. Looking around, I'm seeing some new faces, which is refreshing, interesting. It also means some of you haven't been following the first rule of Fight Club. So, just as a quick reminder, the first rule of Fight Club is we don't talk about Fight Club. Second rule of Fight Club is, you know, just try your best and have fun. Glad you're here tonight. Anyway, now that we got those out of the way, just wanted to talk to you guys for a couple of minutes. I've been doing things, believe it or not. I've been doing stuff. Look at that. That thing works. I was gonna have a fire going tonight, but I can't justify a wood fire when it's 64 outside. Anyhow, for the first time since I've had this car here, I was able to wiggle the axle back into place. When I bought this whole rear section, this was actually an eBay score. No Corvettes were harmed in the removal of this transaxle. This was I don't know if it was a water damaged car or what, but I managed, when I bought it, it came all on a pallet. And the back ends of these, if this upper control arm isn't in place, the whole thing kind of flops over and the CV joints get all wumpus, and it was kind of hard to get back in place. But I was able to work that back up into place. And see this one, the control arm won't go. Anyway, work that into place and trim out enough of the metal to put that upper control arm actually in here and stand that outer upright up for the first time and actually hang that back wheel on it. And guys, look at the back wheel. Holy shit. I'm gonna need to probably add a spacer in them. They're way too close to the body. They actually, I think they rub a little bit, but it's fine. Put a little spacer back there. It doesn't have the brake on it either, which is gonna space it out a bunch, but holy shit, doesn't that look cool? So, as we sit right now, in theory, I'm on the precipice of making some pretty big changes. I've got some parts in hand that I want to talk to you about, but I wanted to just sort of bring you in for a minute and talk about some things before all those parts just got themselves disappeared into the car, and just kind of show you what I've been up to and what my thought process has been, and kind of get an opinion maybe? I don't know. Anyhow, let me show you what I got. The last time we talked, I had set all this junk up, trying to get an idea of how I was going to do this front section. I got to land these upper control arms. Can you guys see? Do you like this being this? Do you like this chesty stuff, or would you rather I drag you around on my left hand like a child and then just point with one hand? I kind of like the two-hand action, but that's just me. Last time, anyway, we were trying to figure out how I was going to land all this and make all this work with our cage and all that shit, and I decided that this looks like absolute garbage and I don't like it. So, some brainstorming and some thoughts. Excuse me. And I thought what I would like to do is try to do something similar to what Chevrolet's had done on the front, where they made these eccentrics to kind of give us a little bit of adjustment. This top idea, the way you adjust these for alignment, is you loosen the bolts and you stuff shims in behind them. And it looks like crap and they're squishy and I don't like them. So what I wanted to do, there's also no good way, no nice clean way in my opinion, to make this sort of situation interface with nice round tubes, right? Without looking chunky and dumb, right? So, with the help of someone much smarter than myself, and again, dude, cannot possibly thank you enough. Holy crap, is this neat. With the help of someone much smarter and better looking than me, I went ahead and put a send cut send order through. No affiliation, just you give them money and they'll send you stuff. They'll send cut send you stuff. Wah, wah. I did, of course, have a bit of a miscalculation. I have to have some of these small parts made, but I will keep these for like seat brackets and junk. These are going to be super handy. But what's cool, what I was after were these here. So this will work much like they'll be a, again, I have to have that remade, so don't judge. Have to have, you know, that'll sit there like this, and as you turn your bolt, basically, long story long, from dead center in the middle here, I'm gonna end up with a 1/2 inch of adjustment either way on these without having to stack a bunch of washers and shit underneath them. And the way those are gonna go is they're gonna kind of go right on the outside. Can you see that? Right on the outside of these arms. These just get a bolt through them, and then these will weld to a piece of 1 5/8 tubing that kind of grows from this area here, is my plan. These upper control arms tip toward the rear of the vehicle by like 6.5 degrees. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a regular hoop. I'm going to make a hoop just like this guy, or that one, or that one, or that one. And but instead of just have 90-degree feet, the front will have a 96.5 degree bend, and the rear will be an 83.5, whatever it is. Whatever it is, so that my bend is in my tube, right? This comes up straight and has a nice bend in it, and then drops down this way, and then these clink right onto the side of it. Yeah, that's sort of my thought process with the front there. So I'm gonna have to make the hardware that goes through here, which is why I got nice washers, and these washers with this little D-shaped thingus on them too. They get a little to capture a bolt like the GM ones do. I'll make some hardware with a nice, like an Allen head cap screw in there that'll turn, so that'll be nice and visually lightweight and cool looking, but still give me enough adjustment, hopefully, that if I'm off a little bit in my building, that we can make it up there. And I mean, what are the chances I'm not going to be off a little bit? So, I'm going to do what we always said: if you can't make it right, make that shit adjustable. So that's my plan there. I also have in this pouch, you won't be able to tell just by the sight, but I've got a whole nother set of these. I've got 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 made that are half-inch hardware to go through here, and I have another 8 made for the back section that are 12 mil hardware slots, because the way these rear control arms work is with the bushing. We'll put a new bushing in here, but this aluminum boy in here is 12 millimeter hardware. These, I'm pretty sure, on the stock car, just bolted to an ear that was welded to the outside of this frame rail, and I don't think these had any adjustment at all on the uppers. I also learned the rear lower doesn't have any adjustment at all either. So from the factory, the only adjustment on this back end, I think, other than toe, was the eccentric on the front. So I'm going to figure out a way to put these up here, so we've got some adjustability in the back. So that's really neat. I'm stoked about those. Those are fun. I'm excited about that. Again, thank you so much. So that's happening. That's happening. We're excited about that. You want to talk about fuelage, or do you want to talk about all this sheet metal that's in the way? Let's touch on gas tanks real quick, and then we'll get back to this. Yeah, I just wanted to show you this. The last time I mentioned, I got to have a talk with the guy who decided to put a transaxle in the back of this car, because it's made everything a huge ass pain. So I would like to be able to drive this for some distance, because I think it's going to be fun. That's kind of the point. If I just wanted it to sit here and look cool, I could have just left the gas out of it completely. But anyway, I'd like 10 gallons was kind of my minimum of where I wanted to be. I think I mentioned last time that I was trying to do, I thought originally about putting a round one, like a spun aluminum tank, up here with a remote filler kind of aircraft style. But there's simply not any space, even for a small, like an 8-inch diameter tank, to go all the way across there. It was only like 8 gallons or 7.5 gallons or something. It didn't hold enough fuel. So I found these boys here. These are 5-gallon aluminum fuel cells with foam and sumps and sending units and rollover valves and all that crap. And I'm going to tie those guys together underneath the transaxle using one of those outlets. They've got 2 outlets on each one, so I'll use one of those outlets and tie them together just so they're tied, and then the other one will tie together and feed a single fuel pump that runs up the length of the car thus. So that is, I'm kind of happy, and it's very cool to have figured that out. Gas tanks, that's kind of where we're at there. I needed those. I wanted to have those in hand before I started making our attachment pieces that come down here, because man, that would have sucked to have made a couple of tubes in there and realized I'd eaten up all the space for our gas tanks. So as it sits, I think the only way those are going to be able to come out, which thank Christ you don't got to do it very often, is going to be to unbolt the seats, and I'm going to make some panels in that that rear firewall there that'll unbolt and they'll slide out the front, because I don't think you'll take those things out any other way. They'll be buried in tubing. I'm not even sure how I'm doing a filler yet, honestly, but I'll figure. I mean, it won't be that hard. It's not a big deal. Figure it out. Gasoline. Hey, if you're joining us from the Project Car subreddit, welcome. You'll recognize this. When I put this control arm up here, hang on, where's my coffee? Not my coffee. Anyhow, when I put this control arm in here for time the first, I'm trying to figure out where it needs to land. I believe it goes sort of parallel with this outside rail. It wiggles around in place, but it hits our sheet metal. It's not hitting right now, I understand that, but it does when it's up in its position. It bumps into the sheet metal here a little bit. I feel like a dipshit. I trimmed some of the lip out. Hang on, can you guys see that? I trimmed some of that lip right there, and that made a huge difference. So that made a big difference, but we still need to make a little bit of space. I was this close, a grinder's sitting right there. I was going to open this episode by cutting into the body of this very nice Model A, you know. Man, it's a nice Model A you got there. Be a shame if something happened to it, right? Some dumb shit like that. Because I was so convinced up until yesterday that the solution to that problem, I've been thinking about this for a minute, was going to be to chop that wheel well out. That whole, when I say the wheel well, I mean this wheel arch here. So you can see I outlined it all with red pencil already. I was going to whack all that and then raise that whole shoot and match up a few inches to give me some clearance there and just kind of make it a nice, smooth, whatever. But the more I look at this, and share with me if you think, tell me what you think, honestly. I would appreciate your comments. I think if I did that, I've really got the possibility of fucking up this whole vibe, this whole side we got here. I love the proportions of this car. I love the proportions of this car as it sits unchopped with its whatever. May not be your cup of tea, whatever. I love the proportions of it are so nice. I enjoy, I'm afraid, guys. I'm afraid if I cut that all out and pick that all up, it's gonna look stupid. And then I'm gonna be left with this big chopped out mess that I either have to A, finish and accept and live with the fact that my Model A looks stupid, or go through all of the painstaking process of putting it all back. So, hang on. So, hear me, I listen to you, now you hear me out. Before I do all that, first off, god damn, that looks cool. Oh, and you can you see through there on camera? You can see like through the wheel and look at the transaxle and shit. I'd like to find a way to keep the dirt and junk out of there, but maybe be able to look through there and see, because god, do I love to be able to look see all the inner workings, right? Like the watches with the clear back, so you can flip them over and see all the gears and shit going. I just think that's, I like when your machinery is done cleanly and nicely, and it doesn't need to be covered or hidden or whatever. It's being on display is its own thing. I think that's cool. So maybe we'll work towards that. That'd be neat. But got all distracted with shiny stuff. Okay, so yes. Why do you watch? Oh, right, you don't. Never mind. So. Woosah. My thought was that if I just made a big notch for the control arm to come up through, it was going to look all rat roddy and stupid, and I didn't want to do that. I wanted to preserve as much of the Model A's Model A-ness as possible. Model A-ness. Well, we just named this car. Oh, crap. Holy crap, look at the clouds. A whole another day. You can tell that. Different shirt, see? Different day. I just had to pop in real fast and tell you I'm still kind of giggling. I don't like naming stuff generally. I don't name the things I make. I just, you know, people ask me about the bikes and shit all the time. What do you call it? I don't know. The pink one. I'm not a big fan of naming things. I don't do it. I know people name their cars whatever. Not my deal. But I'm still I'm still chuckling over the model anus. So I think, liking to name things or not, and probably wouldn't have chosen that if I could have. I think we're stuck with that. So unfortunately, I think we're stuck with that name. Oh, which sucks for kind of a lot of reasons, but here we are. I'm still finding it funny, so I don't think I'm going to be able to shake that one. Anyway, just wanted to mention that. Okay, so somebody suggested maybe making a new control arm. What I'd really like to do, though, in this situation, is I would like to preserve as much of the factory C5 stuff as I can, while at the same time, if possible, saving as much of the Model A sheet metal as I can as well. I would like to do both of those things. And once I chop that whole thing out, there's really no going back, right? You can't unshit the bed. You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. That bell can't really be unrung in an easy and simple manner. So, my thought is, as a compromise or as a start, maybe instead, hang on. We'll just do that. God, I love those wheels. Maybe instead, I'll have to open that up a little bit, but maybe we'll just, the least invasive thing, I think, is to make a little small notch right there. If I take my time and cut it out very carefully and very gently and very nicely, if I hate it, I can put it back. I could add a little detail. I've got the rear panel. I've got this little, I could add a little something if I wanted to. You're never going to see that when the wheel's off, and you're never going to see it behind the tire. Thoughts? Anybody? I think it saves the most C5 stuff. It saves the most stock Corvette stuff. And it's the least invasive bit of hackery on the Model A, on the sheet metal. One of the things I loved about this car when I looked at it is that it's a nice, complete, fairly complete enough for my purposes, fairly rust-free other than the surface rust, solid car. It's a nice, excellent starting point, but it's not so nice that I mind chopping little bits of it out. And honestly, that's race car shit there. I think that done better, done well, would suit sort of the style that I have going on better than trying to cut and raise that wheel well. It also, there's a certain thing to be said, is I like the look on a channeled car, like on a 60s East Coast style car. That's one of those dead giveaways, right? Is that usually, you know, the middle of the wheel is in the middle of the wheel well, and this is so it's the top of the wheel is way up over the arch, so it gives it a very distinct, very quick visual that, oh yeah, that car is really low. It's a neat whatever, and I think I don't want to lose that. No, you could do yours however you like, but that's my plan with this one. How long have I been rambling? So long, holy shit. Okay, sorry. I just wanted to catch you guys up before we get into the thing. Say hey to the few of you that were new here. Again, welcome, thank you. Really quick before I let you go, because that was the big deal. I was waiting on all those send cut send parts, so I knew when I bolted this together where the tubes need to land. Ditto the backside. I could bolt those tabs to some stuff, kind of hang it out there in space like I did up here with all thread and angle iron and shit. Figure out where those need to land and then build the tube to go in place. That's my next big step, because I was looking at the other day, despite all of this tubing and shit being in here, this rear section is not attached to anything. It's just sitting on the table. The front's got 2 screws in it, but it's not actually attached to the chassis yet. The chassis is all nice and square to itself, and the rear, these are sitting square to each other on the table, but like they're not screwed to anything yet. So I needed my attachment points to bolt to the cradles are also my attachment points for my suspension. So I couldn't get there from here for a few minutes. So while I was waiting, oh my God, you guys, I talk too much. While I was waiting, love those seats too. I went ahead and bent the harness, this harness bar goes around the backside, and then these 2 guys here. These 2 were actually the remainder of the failed A-pillar bar that I bent and didn't like, that had a hard 90 in it right there. I cut that right in the middle and used those 2 45s. Those are whatever. I dig it. I think it's neat. There's plenty of room for my melon up there, and you can barely see a little cage bar, just a little cage bar here and there through the window. You get just the tiniest little glimpse, which I super like. Theoretically, I think if we really wanted to appease the NHRNA, they would have been a down tube here, but I will be goddamned if I'm putting a down tube out the back of this car. Absolutely not. I don't think it'll ever run 990s anyway, so I don't think it'll actually need all of that. So my plan was, instead of that, I'm gonna bring there to there. Right, it's just gonna, same thing. It's fine. I say it's fine. So that's kind of where I'm at. Hopefully the next time I see you guys, we'll have something. I'm winded from talking too much. I talked more just now than I did all week. We'll have something in place back there. Or up here. I gotta bend these 2 pieces and see what this looks like. It's gonna be cool. I'm very excited. I can't get over how cool that looks with the rear wheel on it. Holy shit. Things are happening. Things are happening. Little bites, but that's just how we do. Just little bits at a time. Little bits at a time, little bits at a time, little bits, and then someday you just don't have any more bits. Cool, see you, go home.